Let me click back on your face. I'm just hitting go live. And now, because this is the most important time to not fuck it up, I've hit record.
I hit record a while ago.
Okay.
Like a minute ago.
Okay, I can deal with that. At all auto syncs anyway. Live stream looks live. And before we get started,
any of the AI features in Adobe 2020 Audition 2024 do anything.
I was playing with the text-based editing in Premiere, and yeah, it made a transcript of a panel from a long time ago as a test. It figured out when I was talking and you were talking in some of the worst fucking audio you've ever heard, and wrote a transcript, and I could literally Control F for words and edit the scene based on those words.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And if you combine that with the Audition stuff where you can just take audio that's text, change some text, and it'll generate plausible sounding words, I could edit our panels to have us say different stuff. I could edit Geek Nights to have you.
Why don't we edit someone else to say different stuff?
We could go, you know what we could do? Total aside. We could use one of those various large language model audio systems or deepfakes and just have someone on the show who doesn't exist or wouldn't talk to us. It would have to be someone who's not litigious or hope maybe dead.
So not Jack Thompson, who's famous for litigious.
The thing he's the most famous for. Otherwise, that would be perfect.
I got a better idea to avoid all trouble. We can avoid all trouble this way, right? And it would be interesting.
All right.
Is if you make a show with a fake me and I make a show with a fake you.
Ooh, that would be like a dueling thing. That's something we'd announce and kick off, and then we give ourselves like 3 months each to actually make it.
Well, I think it would be better if like I had an AI that I could actually just talk to. Right.
Yep.
It's like I talk, it does a speech to text. The text goes to the chat GPT of RIM, the RIM GPT.
Yep.
The RIM GPT makes text, and then a RIM voice GPT says the text.
So the way to do this
all
for
those
real.
Pieces exist. We just have to wire them together.
So I know this is pre-show still. There's people watching, but the way we could do this for real, because I was just at a conference speaking on a panel professionally about AI and large language models to capital markets in a completely packed room. And I actually have some expertise with this. We would want to train a model on Geek Nights, and then we both use the same model to make our respective shows. That's the shortest path to that. There are models and systems that do what you describe. The cost of running that on like AWS would be not extreme, but we'd spend some Patreon money. It would cost more than you think.
But we only need to run it for like 2 hours.
Yeah, but there's anyway. I will look into this a little bit.
And once training it is a one-time investment, basically, right? Unless you want to keep adding new Geek Nights episodes to keep it trained, but I feel like 1,000 something is enough.
Yeah.
And then it costs money to use the model, but we only have to use it ourselves for 2 shows.
So the tricky part,
if anyone else wants to use it, Creative Commons, they have to pay.
This is where I'd have to do some research because I know there are models because I've systems that I've seen work where it will generate a human voice talking back to you in response to natural language audio. I don't know how proprietary or accessible those are to you and me.
I'm telling you, we don't need it to be. You can just do a text one. We just hook up basically 3 different pieces, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to.
It's doable. It'll be a pain. There's a lot of pieces we'd have to go through. It would be a project. We'd have to spend more time on it than we spent on Grease the Wheels or our convention or.
I mean, think about it, I'm pretty sure that's how Siri, Google, Alexa all work. Is 3 pieces, right? It does speech to text.
Yep.
It does a text-based query, and then it does text to speech. It does 3 separate components.
I will put a small amount of my professional capabilities into working out what the practical pipeline would look like, and then we can decide if it is worth even considering doing, because I think it would be fun.
I think the best thing would be is someone who already knows how the fuck to do that.
We can hire a consultant who knows about this stuff to put it together for us with the Patreon money.
Like, hey, other person who knows how to do this, do it for fun.
All right, if any of you out there have practical experience implementing models like we just described, tell us.
You have over 1,500 episodes of Creative Commons licensed Geek Nights.
I'd be willing to give you an archive.
Stopping you.
I would be willing to give you an archive of the the lossless original recordings even. Like, I would go nuts.
Anyway.
And we'd pay you. All right, let's do the show. Put a marker there. It's Thursday, October 19th, 2023. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, we got the website up and then immediately couldn't do shows for like 2 weeks for literally, no exaggeration, unrelated reasons. And now we're back. So, yeah.
We'll see. We haven't uploaded an episode of the news site yet. Let's see if it even fucking works.
Exactly. I was actually about to open with, so...
This episode might be up like way late because we can't get the website.
This episode will appear in order on YouTube because it's already on YouTube. It'll appear on Patreon probably about 20 minutes after I eat dinner after the show. And then it'll appear on...
automate that eventually.
Yeah, we will. But, well, I want to wait because it looks like Patreon is making a bunch of changes, so I don't want to waste our time implementing against their existing kind of busted stuff.
Yeah, no, they changed a whole bunch of shit going on over
there. The main reason I'm sticking with Patreon right now is that unless they go away, it is a free, publicly available archive of Geek Nights, regardless of if anyone donates money. And that's the main reason. We could
go to archive.org also. It probably will.
So. We should go everywhere. But
yeah.
So that aside, I was biking home from work today, like you do. And it was really windy when I got to that bridge. Like... I like to bike in extreme weather, and I don't mind wind, and like Scott kind of makes fun of me for that. Like, I will bike in weather where Scott would absolutely not bike under any circumstances. But even I had to pause my biking on the Queensboro Bridge for fear of the wind blowing me into the side.
I've definitely had to stop biking at times in my life because I thought the wind would blow me away.
Yep.
And knock me over in a dangerous fashion.
And I was thinking about the wind and the name of the wind, and I remember the Patrick Rothfuss existed, and I went to see if there was ever a third book to that series that we read two of above the Kingkiller Chronicle. You know, the Captain.
I read one of them. You read two.
I read two, and the second one was definitely.
You said there were sex ninjas.
There were sex ninjas.
Okay, I remembered that correctly then.
And he accidentally outsexes the goddess of sex, and she falls in love with him. And that happens independent of the sex ninjas.
Okay.
And those are the least noteworthy things that happen in that book that are worth making fun of. But yeah, there still is no third book, and there's no indication there ever will be a third book. It seems like it's radio silence. So it is a race between Patrick Rothfuss, the Game of Thrones guy, and R. Scott Bakker to see whoever finishes what they started.
Does he have I mean, you know,
I couldn't find like any.
You're saying George R. Martin.
Yeah, he also. None of them are going to finish these series.
A lot of R names in there, right?
Yeah. I feel like, you know, J.R.R. Tolkien was the one who stole the mojo from all the other R people.
Yeah. The thing is, I feel like, you know, if R.R. Martin actually finishes a book, that'll get published no matter what, right?
Yeah.
But there's no guarantee that, like, if Bakker or Rothfuss finish yet another book, that someone
Bakker is writing another book, but it's not a Prince of Nothing book.
Okay, but I mean, there's no guarantee that it'll be published.
Well,
right?
Rothfuss, I think it is. I'm pretty sure he is under contract still for that third book.
Yeah, what happens to authors when they sign like a 5-book deal and don't write? They just stop and they don't get the next book.
Like, I don't know, because the same thing happened to the Locke Lamora guy.
Advance or anything? It's like
remember the Locke Lamora guy like signed up for 6 books, and then that just went nowhere, and he had a bunch of personal troubles.
I guess the publisher has the option to stop early, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, if they want another one, they're like, hey, we want another one, and you don't cough up, or you don't get it done. Do you get in trouble? Like,
I mean, I imagine
anyone out there an expert on book deals? I don't know.
I bet it depends a lot on the contract you signed, and I bet.
But I'm saying is like there's probably a standard. The big publishers probably have a pretty standard set of terms.
Yeah.
You know? They're not identical.
I imagine those terms vary primarily based on how wealthy, successful, and famous you already are as an author up to that point.
Yeah, I know. There's definitely a difference between fantasy author who's writing a series deal and I'm a famous person writing a one book thing. You're gonna sell copies because I'm a separate famous person from politics, sports, etc., showbiz.
Yeah,
and I'm not even writing most of the book. Someone else is helping me, right?
I wonder if they get if publishers sometimes get insurance. Like, I want insurance on this nerd who said he can write me 12 fantasy novels in case he doesn't make it past 7.
I don't know.
All right, so there's so much news that there's no way we can talk about all of it.
And so much of it is gaming news, tech news,
geopolitical news.
There's like 100 relevant nerd companies have laid people off, right?
Yep. Never mind, there are like multiple earth-shattering breaking newses that happened between when we put up that website and stopped doing Geek Nights and now. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but I think we're pointedly not going to address the ongoing, extremely rapidly escalating war in Israel, partly because you should not be coming to a podcast by us to learn about that conflict.
No, I learned about it in school, which is, where you should learn about it.
Yep.
But I will say this, right, is that not about the war itself, right, but about the worldwide discourse, right, relating to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict whenever it comes up.
It is not a healthy discourse.
No, is that basically the situation is that, you have in the geographic area, right? You got Israelis, you got Palestinian people, right? And in those, right, in each of those two groups, right, there are violent people who kill innocent people.
Yep.
And there are the majority of each of those two groups are normal people who just don't want to die. They want to live their life and not die.
You know what?
Just
See,
like
also, people in Russia, people in Ukraine, everywhere.
Everywhere, right? And so what happens is, you end up with people, right, who take sides in, right? It's like a lot of wars, and a lot of our media, we try to, view everything as like, try to identify good guys and bad guys, right? Like with Russia, it's like Ukraine never attacked Russia. Really,
Russia as a nation state, clear aggressor, clear bad guy. Ukraine as a nation state, clear defender, clearly in the right in this conflict. But a nation state is not even necessarily the sum of its people. Like, America is kind of a democracy, but there's a lot of discourse we could have there about how it's not a great one. Germany is more of a democracy. Russia is basically an entire nation state at the behest of one angry guy full of grievances and nonsense.
The point is, right, you have these two sides, both of which are simultaneously, right, and perhaps close to equally evil, heinous evil, and good, right? Depending on how you slice it up, right? And people look and see one evil or the other and take a side, right? And end up, going, people go too far into the realms of either, anti-Semitism or Islamophobia, right? And everything, all this stuff, because nobody can think subtly or, with any level
or
of,
even worse,
complexity beyond just two sides.
I am not defending politicians, but it is important to recognize that politicians in many countries, this conflict...
In democratic countries.
Yeah, in democratic countries, this conflict is not just a geopolitical issue. It also, for really fucked up and bad reasons, is a domestic issue. And it is impossible to say anything even remotely nuanced and still get reelected in any context related to this.
Yeah, it's like, even if you're a politician, right, who understands, the situation, you've been briefed by experts and you understand what's going on, right, and have a complex, nuanced opinion. If you go out and try to say, right, that like, hey, this is two evil people fighting each other and killing good people on the other sides, right? And it's not just, some black and white kind of deal, then one of those two groups or both will just hate you now because you're either on their side or they're not. Right? And then they won't vote for you, and then you lose your elected position, perhaps to a crazy person.
Yep.
So you feel like it's better up. A lot of politicians will actually just straight up lie or pretend or whatever and look at their constituents and say what they have to say on the issue to get reelected, and hide what they truly believe. And that's,
not saying that's right. Just take a line from that monkey video that I use a lot as I get older.
I would say what I believed, and then I would be unelected. But also, why should anyone who's in, like, if you're the president of the United States, what you have to say on this matter probably matters. If you're a senator,
well, especially because every word you say could literally cause the conflict to get worse and more people to die.
Of course. But if you're like the mayor of Podunk, whatever city somewhere, right? Not New York City, just like some whatever city. And it's like your constituents are going to vote on that issue when even though nothing you do in the position has anything to do with it. Right?
And it is very telling that in the United States, the intent of our two houses of our Congress, not to get all into deep politics, the intention was the House represents the people primarily on domestic issues and taxation. The Senate represents the states, and the Senate is what does treaties, because the idea was experts in the Senate should be making geopolitical decisions, and domestic voters should not be directly interfering in foreign affairs.
That was the intent that we were taught in social studies class.
But I guess all this political, we're not justifying, but to use that line that I use a lot because it's a very useful line from that monkey video, I'm not saying this is good. I'm simply saying this is what happened.
Yep. I think if you want to, all I would tell the listener, right, is that if you're going to open your mouth on this issue, right, I'm not imagining many of the listener, because I wasn't, were alive as far back as the early 20th century.
Never mind 1947 when this core conflict began.
Right. So you didn't see any of this happen, right? So you should at least read more than one book. Perhaps even more than 2 books. I'm gonna link to, because it's pretty well done and it's short. Just in the news for any of you who maybe think you want to say something about this out loud in public. It is an old crash course video that is 12 minutes long that just explains the context of the region between 1947 and about 8 years ago. Yeah. But regardless, if you can't tell the difference, right, between like the 6-Day War and the Yom Kippur War and which one happened first, between who, right, then you should just not say anything about anything that's happening there because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Right? And if you do really want to say something so bad, well, go learn what happened there first, right? Because it's one of the rare cases, actually, where, I mean, obviously history is connected to everything that's happening today, right?
Yeah.
But this is one of those ones where it's still like, it's not one of those cases where like people are saying and sort of like, drawing connections like, oh, this is still the same.
This is like a direct, continuous conflict about the same fundamental issues since 1947.
Right. It's right. So it's a history.
Actually, 1943, I think, would be a better year to say that this all properly began.
I mean, you could say it goes back thousands of years if you could only, correctly prove any of the whole things actually happened.
The one thing, this SciShow video gets to this. It makes a very strong point that this conflict is not fundamentally about religion, which is a facile thing that a lot of people believe.
It has not much to do with it.
Yep. And the conflict as we know it today did really begin as a result of what happened in World War II. So the thousands of years of conflict in the region are not...
a lot of it's the UK's fault.
Yeah, the UK, like, directly. Like, there are names of individual people we can blame,
and yet they
directly.
They have no responsibility for it now whatsoever.
Yep, and most of them are dead of old age.
Anyway.
In news that we can at least make fun of a little bit, though it is going to be a crisis soon. So last we left, the U.S. House of Representatives had failed to elect a speaker in a historic, ridiculous shit show and eventually elected a guy who sucked. That guy failed, and one of the things he agreed to even get the speakership in the first place. Now, bear in mind, the Speaker of the House
was that he could be kicked out easily.
He could be kicked out. Basically, it would one person.
He's like, vote for me and put me in the job. And if I suck at it, you can basically breathe on me and I'll leave.
Yep. Any one person in the entire House can immediately force a vote to kick him out, and all they need is a majority. That was the what he agreed to. And guess what?
Democrats went all that whole time without breathing. They could have done it. Any one of them. And none of them did.
The reason the Democrats didn't is that, I mean, politically, tactically, if the House is going to be broken, it has to be the Republicans' fault in a way that even a stupid person is not going to disagree with. Mm-hmm. But two, the Democrats couldn't elect a good speaker regardless. They voted every time for Hakeem Jeffries, who is up.
Not change that, which I like.
Hakeem Jeffries would be a fantastic Speaker of the House for everyone in America, Republican and Democrat. Like, he's just a good person.
Best ever? Question mark.
You know what? I think he might be the best ever, and a big part of that is because
best in my living memory.
You know what a big part of that is? He's not white.
The ones that I can remember. I will take Hakeem Jeffries.
Name a non-white Speaker of the House in all of American history. Yeah. But so of course the dipshit caucus did this because the Republicans basically have such a thin majority that they have to vote 100% to elect a new speaker, or they can't. They either have to give up and let the Democrats have the speakership, or they have to all agree. And there's between 6 and 20 people who, political people, are kind of legit. Like, this is a phrase I am seeing in a lot of places. They're calling them the dipshit caucus. It's basically 20 or so dipshits who were elected from extremely gerrymandered districts that go like 80% Republican. So they're unaccountable to anyone. Like, they will get reelected no matter what they do. There can never be consequences for them unless they commit a crime and go to jail. One of them might go to jail, so stay tuned on that. He's so bad, even the Republicans are talking about actually kicking him out. They can't elect a speaker. This is literally never happened before. This is the longest the House has ever been without a speaker. They have been trying for 2 weeks to elect a speaker, and it's just failing and failing and failing. And there are updates every day. I can't even begin to summarize the ridiculous own goal shit show that is happening in the American House right now. The latest update, Jim Jordan, who, by the way, has one, never passed a bill, and two, directly supported.
He's like the worst person. Anytime you watch a congressional hearing and that guy's there, it's like, oh, mute button. It's like there are other Republicans, not to say that they're good people, right? But that you can listen to, and they'll say something maybe possibly coherent occasionally.
This would be like if one of the corrupt kings in The Lord of the Rings gave a speech, and then Gollum showed up next to give a speech.
No. Jim Jordan is like, the person you would ban from your forum after the first comment.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's like, he's like the worst person, right? It's like, just the internet troll, horrible conspiracy nut job, awful human being. Yeah,
he directly supported the January 6th coup attempt, and he voted against certifying the 2020 election. So that tells you all you really need to know. He's the only candidate they've got to be speaker right now, and even he can't get the votes. And like 20 Republicans,
they have like 100-something members. They can't just pick any. None of them want to try.
No one who wants to try can get 100% of the votes necessary. You need a majority of the House. They only have a margin of like 4. So the dipshit caucus, the smallest, most dipshitty core of the dipshit caucus is 6 people. That is more people then you can have a defection on and still select a speaker, unless the Democrats let you select a speaker, and the Democrats are saying, we will only accept Hakeem Jeffries. So this is an unprecedented, and I mean that literally, crisis in American politics, and it is noteworthy that right now, America can't even pass bills to send aid to Israel or Palestine or Ukraine or anything. Like, not only is this an unprecedented crisis that has literally paralyzed the American government, it's going to shut down again in a few weeks if they don't pick a speaker. And we can't do anything during an unrelated, unprecedented set of multiple major wars starting simultaneously. So, fun times in D.C. and the world.
I wonder if, you want to talk about conspiracy theories. Right? Let me make up some obviously not true. I don't want anyone spreading these, conspiracy theories that I just made up. I literally just made up both of these ideas. Do not pretend that I believe these or spread them as truth, right? Conspiracy theory number 1, other countries do their bullshit with timing because they see this happening, right? Even worse conspiracy theory, to go even further, right? That some people in the House are agents of the other countries making this happen on purpose to disable the U.S. government, and then the countries do those things.
What bothers me the most is that that's not a conspiracy. Some parts of that are pretty well proven, in that there are a number of members of the American House and Senate who are Republicans who directly advocate for transforming American democracy into something more like Hungary or Russia. And they say this out loud.
The point is, if somebody is actually proven to be, that's, I mean, you're allowed to believe things like that, right? That's not against the law, right? But if anyone was shown,
Scott, an American senator, a Democrat from New Jersey, who the Democrats are aggressively trying to force out of the Senate, he's about to be charged with being a foreign agent of Egypt, like right now.
Right. That's what I'm saying, is that if you're clearly a foreign agent of another country of that nature, right? But we're not like at war with Egypt.
Yep. In fact, actually, Egypt has been, as a nation in this entire conflict, pretty reasonable and pragmatic relative to the history of that country in regard to this conflict. Right. That was a very guarded statement for a reason, but
sure. But if somebody was an agent of an evil place, right, we'd have real treason.
Yep. But it's very hard to prosecute treason, as we're seeing with the literal former president of the United States.
Well, that's the king's problem, right? Is the stupid, the king who cried treason back in 17 whatever was just treasoning everybody. It's like, off with their head, treason. You said you don't like the color of my shoes, treason, head off. So in 17 whatever, right, Ben Franklin was like, all right, we can't let anyone be swinging around these treasons so easily. Got to make it real hard to do the treason, because that fucking king over there, he was just treasoning every 2 seconds.
I mean, granted, about half the states treasoned not too long later, and we had the Civil War. So
I'm just saying. Okay.
All right. One last little news before we get into everything else. So I have to institute a rule that we haven't had to use on Geek Nights in a long time. The Jack Thompson rule is back. After this news, we're no longer going to talk about Twitter in any context unless the news about Twitter is somehow bigger and crazier than any news that has ever happened up to this point about Twitter. Because Twitter's dead, like buried, done. Nails, so many nails in the coffin, they can't even see the coffin anymore.
Is Twitter literally out of business and closed and gone forever? No. You can log in, you can tweet, you can see tweets, right? It's still there. It's actually, if you haven't been on it recently, which I hope you haven't, it is more like, together than you might realize. But how many people are there that you follow? Your timeline might be a little ghost towny, but it's still there. But effectively, it might as well just be turned off at this point.
Yep.
Right? Effectively speaking.
So
we'll talk about it again if, like, it literally turns off, or I don't know what. It would have to be something of that nature for us to discuss it.
So if the theme of the last news and this news is punching yourself in the dick, Twitter has put the final nail in their dick. They are now going to charge money to tweet.
Well, I think they're discussing doing it.
They rolled it out in New Zealand and the Philippines.
Yeah. Now, this is an idea that has been brought up for many web platforms many times.
The idea of charging $1 a year to have an account that can tweet and retweet in the era before Twitter was completely ruined by everything else probably would have solved a lot of Twitter's problems.
But it also, right, we also don't like this idea for many obvious problems, right? It keeps out everybody who, even if they have $1 to spare, right, doesn't have a credit card to actually perform online transactions. You'd have to sell gift cards in the store that are like $1.
And we see how healthy that ecosystem is with like GameStop and Nintendo points over the years. It also, as you bring up, there is a big difference between the ideological reality of paying for a service is superior if you pay with dollars intentionally as opposed to paying with spying and advertising. But the practical reality of having people pay with dollars causes a lot of externalities that are hard to address under capitalism.
Yep. Also, when you have an audience that is entirely paying with dollars, advertisers want to advertise to it more, right? Because they know, right? It's this weird thing that happens, right? Where it's like, in the ad world, we've talked about this so many times, right? All numbers in the ad world, even before the internet, are full of bullshit, right? And that's sort of the standard for how it always been, right? The radio ratings, TV ratings. It's like no one ever counted those super precisely. Nielsen has methods that are not actually awful, but it's like they're imprecise, right? They don't really know how many people watch the Super Bowl every year, right?
Yep.
They just think it's a lot of people. They're not wrong, but regardless. And so what ends up happening is someone who's in a position of selling ads, pretty much everybody, almost everyone who sells ads, inflates the numbers to some degree, right? That like it'll be something as small as like I have an email newsletter and I don't subtract the people who unsubscribed until like, some period of time has passed after they've unsubscribed. That's like the smallest amount of number fudging, right? But then other people straight up lie, like I'll round up to the nearest 1,000, right? Or, it's like they just count to get the biggest number they can. And people who buy ads, right, sometimes don't even give a shit. And they're just happy to believe lies, and they don't really care about their ad performance. And some people who really are buying ads and do really care about performance, right, want to get real numbers, but have a hard time doing so, and will use various methods. But nothing, even on the internet, is really accurate at all. Now, here's the thing. If you go down this road that Twitter's going down of charging money, getting rid of bots, right, you are going to bring the numbers down.
Yep.
Way, way down.
But meanwhile, the number of dollars coming in, even if every human being who has ever used Twitter paid $1 a year, that is not the amount of money the advertisers were paying Twitter.
Nope. So the dollars that come in are basically just bot blocking. Those are not dollars that are actually going to be your good revenues, right? It's like, but you're hoping that advertisers would rather pay more money if they know that their ads are being seen only by real people, but a smaller number, right? Or would the advertisers rather pay for the big number, but they're not all real people? And the fact is, right, it was the same number of people either way.
Yep.
It's right? Right? It's the same number of real humans are going to see the ad either way. Whether you block the bots or not, it's the same number of real humans that are there. Right? So why, right? But yet you're going to, mess with your advertiser's perception by messing with your number, right? So it's not, this is why big platforms have never, right, taken the strongest measures to actually block all the bots and duplicate accounts and fake accounts. Because when you do that, people see the reality, which is that the number is small. The number is small.
Now, if you were running a company
that many people
that charged
really using
money,
these platforms, really active on these platforms, right? There never really have been. The number has always been mega inflated.
Now, meanwhile, look at a service you pay money for, like Netflix. They know how many people are paying money, and all they really care about is how many people are paying money, because that money goes directly to them. And then they figure out what is the minimum level of content and effort we need to put in to make sure the money that people pay us is significantly more than the money we spend. Like that is
keep raising and they're raising their prices again.
And they're probably right to do so because they kind of won the streaming war.
Maybe. We'll see.
I mean, all the other platforms are on the verge of bankruptcy. Like no one's doing well.
Who knows?
Yeah. Right. Gonna put a little marker there.
Oh, good. So in the similar story, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, we did have another news. We're gonna move the marker.
Well, it's just related to that. Are we good?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. Yeah. So in the related tiniest news, right? Apple in the new iOS has updated the podcast app, which most people don't use, I guess, because people hate that app for some reason. I never really
use
used
it. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't know why people hate it so much, but there's nothing wrong with it. They updated it a bunch, whatever. I actually been using Spotify more, but
I've noticed the people who complain about it, they have like really fiddly, particular, fussy things they want to do with podcasts that I just don't understand. Like they have,
I just want the newest episodes to be there so I can listen to them.
They're like, no, but I want to be able to set a rule where it keeps the most recent 5 episodes of these shows, but I want to keep the whole archive of this other show. And I want, like, they have all these fiddly requirements. Like, I don't care.
I just listen to episodes when they come out. Otherwise, I'm not listening to it, so I don't want it. Anyway, it used to be that the Apple Podcast app, Apple is no longer the #1 podcast client anyway. They're like number 3 or 4 or something. But the Apple Podcast app used to just keep downloading all the episodes. So if you subscribe to Geek Nights in that app, it would just download every Geek Nights episode.
Yep.
Right? Even if you weren't listening to Geek Nights. It would.
So Geek Nights seems far more popular than it actually is. Just like there's a lot of people who sign up for a Patreon.
If you're looking at downloads of MP3s as your metric, because obviously you can't track plays. You don't know if someone's playing it or not. They might play it 10 times. They might, right? But if you're looking at downloads, numbers were inflated. And now the newest iOS doesn't do that. If you don't listen to that podcast, it stops automatically downloading all the episodes. So,
good. I think this is great.
Yeah, I
change.
think that's good too. But it's a similar story to Twitter, where the number you can show the advertisers is going to be smaller, right? And so even though the true number of listeners is unchanged, are advertisers going to pay less money because it's harder to lie to them with a bigger number, even though their true number was the same before as it is now? If it was worth it to them before, nothing is different now other than the person who is lying to you is forced to lie less.
Well, especially because the downloads represent someone actually listening for real, so you have this hard number, but the podcasters, there are a lot of people, I get the impression, who are fans of podcasts, and they throw a subscribe over there because they're asked to by the person they're a fan of, because that helps the advertiser metrics. So you can support a podcaster you like by being a subscriber because it juices their metrics a little bit, even if you never listen. I think there's a lot of people who subscribe to things on YouTube, on all these platforms, because they're trying to do a solid for the person they like, but they don't actually engage with that person's content. I think that's a thing. And you know what? We're about to find out how much of a thing that is.
Well, we'll see. Anyway, that's what's going down.
All right, gonna get my little live Be Real while we're doing the show.
Stopped using that a long time ago.
Well, I still use it. A lot of our friends still use it. I enjoy seeing their updates. And before the listener asks, no, it is close friends only. I'm not like sharing my Be Real with the world.
Obviously.
All right. But anyway, things of the day. So, full disclosure, this video does have a sponsored ad in it. I'm just going to tell you straight up. It's actually pretty cool software, I think, so I don't feel that bad about it. But also, it's on a channel that does very, very good content normally. So, I'm okay linking to this because the video, if you're not familiar with how music works, you know about minor scales and major scales. I'm sure most people at least know, like, minor scale music sounds a little bit sadder and darker, and major scale music sounds happier. If you know a little more about music, you know about the modes, like the Lydian mode and the Mixolydian mode and the Phrygian mode and different kinds of minor scales. And songs are written in all sorts of complicated scales. This video takes a song that you might have heard of. It's called Bohemian Rhapsody by an artist known as Queen. And they play a snippet from the song. And then they alter the song to be very well done in a bunch of different musical modes as an exercise in showing you how different modes...
already has like 4 or 5 modes.
Yeah, but it takes basically Just Killed a Man, like that little bit, and plays just that bit in a 9 different distinctive modes. And it's very well done. If you ever wondered like how these different scales work, this is a really good demonstration of it. If you heard about harmonic minor and melodic minor and wondered why there's all these different minor scales, well, yeah, there's a reason. One of these sounds way better than the others for a reason. And what I'll leave on is a lot of people talk about how the Locrian mode is impossible nonsense garbage that should never be used for any purpose. The Locrian mode would be You ever sit at a piano? You start at C and you play all the way up to the top. It makes a nice major scale. Move your fingers one white key to the left. Start on B and play whatever scale that is, B to B. It's going to sound like shit. That's the Locrian mode. You're going to find out what Bohemian Rhapsody would sound like if someone earnestly tried to make the Locrian mode work for this song at the end of the video. So what do you got?
So, I mean, I guess I could have saved a speed run thing of the day for a Tuesday, but whatever. So
I thought you were going to open with a joke about how we finally discovered nuclear fusion.
Well, no, it's so
Put it on a Monday.
There's a Game Boy Advance Castlevania game. There's a few of them, but there's one called Circle of the Moon,
which I've never actually played. I kind of want to now.
I never beat any of those. I've tried. Anyway, they're good. But anyway, speedrunners play those games, obviously. And, you know, speedrunning, I think I still enjoy it as a spectator of it. But lately, it's like you haven't really seen, you see people beating times,
yeah,
right? But you're not seeing too many incredible techniques developed in known games. Like in big games, people have sort of pushed things to the limit.
Yeah,
it's to the point where they have things like the Simpsons people putting out a bounty for people trying to figure out a way around something.
You got the Mario 1 where humans have achieved within like a couple of frames of near Taz perfection. Like,
yeah. But, in terms of like a new development that dramatically changes something in an entertaining for the spectator fashion is rare. But here we obviously have a case of that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be mentioning it. So in Circle of the Moon, they discovered a technique called they call it nuclear fusion.
It's a good name.
Is the greatest thing ever. When you activate this trick and you don't fuck it up, basically it does maximum infinite damage to every enemy as soon as the enemies appear on screen. So you like walk into a boss room, boss dies. As soon as like enemies die before they get on screen, you barely even get to see the 99999 that appears.
Pop in a room full of bats. It's just 99999's covering the screen.
Yeah. And it's really fun and awesome. It completely changes how people speedrun this game, obviously. They had to make separate categories for with and without this glitch. But it's super fun to see it, and I really wish I had... There's a lot of games that I wish I had that. And
I mean, Game Genie can...
There are a lot of games that are fun games, except they have really shitty fighting. And I would love to just auto-win all battles, eliminate the combat from the game, and have an otherwise good game.
So when I was a kid... I played Bionic Commando once with a Game Genie because I'd never beaten it before. Like, this is when I was pretty young. And I put in the code that made you invincible. And I got all the way into the game, and it was super fun. And then I got to the bit where you got to shoot Hitler, and if you fall, you get shot by that gun, and you have to try again. And I missed because it's actually a hard shot, especially if you're a kid. And then I fell, and the gun didn't kill me because I was invincible. And I soft-locked. The whole run was ruined, and it was over, and I was fucked.
But I'm going to say, playing Doom with IDDQD and IDKFA is not unfun.
It is definitely fun. I've done that I've beaten Doom.
I'm not it's not obviously not, impressive.
Yeah. But it can be fun. I mean, I've beaten Doom too.
Still, even though you can't die and there's no skill involved in fighting the monsters, you still have the fun of finding secrets and exploring mazes.
Yep.
And just shooting monsters can be enjoyable even if there's no risk. It's only reward, right? It's like buying a bag of candy and eating it. No risk, all reward. It's still enjoyment to be had.
Because it's entertainment software.
Yeah, but you won't see me playing Doom that way very often.
Nah. Just thinking about playing Doom 2 again.
With IDDQD?
No, just kind of straight up.
Just actually.
I beat Doom 2 a couple times in high school on Hurt Me Planning, and that's the best I ever did. And that took a lot of attempts on some of those later levels.
I just don't. It's shocking even today how few of the secrets I know where they are. It's like
I know where they are in Doom 2 because I was obsessed with that game and modded it a lot as a kid.
The early levels, like I have no fucking clue.
I think
I don't.
I spent more time in Wadded and Dehacked fucking with Doom and like digging into how maps were set up than I ever did playing the game.
Yeah. Anyway,
in the meta moment, I'm going to skip the normal meta because one, we've already gone on for like 45 minutes. And two, the most important meta is the new GeekNights website is live.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about it every meta moment anymore.
Yeah, it's live. It's up. We're going to...
It seems to be functioning. Nobody's said that like, hey, we can't get your podcast anymore.
Yep. We've had aesthetic and UX complaints, but that's expected. We just wanted to get it live because you know what sucks more than making a website better? Making a legacy website better, simultaneous to making a new website.
Right. So, I didn't wait until the new website was perfect before putting it up, right? I said, hey, as soon as the new website is as good as or even slightly better than the old website, I'm going to put it up, even if there's still more work to be done, because I did a whole bunch of work making it really easy to work on the new website. So I, or anyone else, because it's now just open on GitHub there, if you send pull requests and they get merged, they are automatically and instantly deployed to the new website. No effort required, which is awesome, and makes it easy, like I said, easy to work on and improve. So it's just a matter of finding time, identifying what to fix, and fixing it, adding new features, whatever. If you have ideas for features, send them in as GitHub issues or make a pull request or,
be like
working on it.
Any ideas, anything, throw them at us. Worst case, we just don't do it because it's hard or we don't like it. Like, you got nothing to lose.
You could take the code and make your own website if you want. That's similar, podcasty features, I guess.
And we're going to keep evolving from there. The biggest thing is that it was literally unrelated reasons. It was a combination of like, I got sick with a minor cold, and then we had some like life fun stuff that we went to do, like events, and then there was a hockey game, and our schedules just like, it was a perfect storm of
like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah. That's why I'm not going to try to upload the episode until after dinner because I want to eat and at least be able to watch this hockey game, but we'll get it uploaded. So, but I guess totally unrelated. It is literally the only reason we have not used this website for a new episode solely because of life nonsense. Tonight just happened to be a good night to do a show. Yep. So
we'll see if the technology for that part functions or not.
And if this episode that you might be watching on YouTube because you're wondering why it's not on our website, or you might be listening to it on Patreon because you're wondering why it's not on our website. If this episode is not up tonight, just give us some time because that means that we got to fix something, and I'm not going to stay up late to fix something together with Scott.
I'll just do it. Tomorrow's Friday, and I got a whole weekend. It's going to rain again.
So, this weekend's fucked anyway, so it's not like I can go hiking. So, if the episode does not get up tonight, blame the fact that this is our first production test of uploading an episode fully.
I did test it many times, not production, but
well, you also haven't tested with now Rim's uploading episode,
and I haven't tested actually uploading to Libsyn. I uploaded to fake FTP places. Right?
Yep.
So Libsyn is obviously weird.
Yep. So there might be a kink or two, and the episode might not appear right away. But then we got a long rainy weekend until next week when we do a show on our normal schedule again, and then we're back to normal. So this episode is kind of just a test. We were going to do a Hello World test last week, like a short episode, but then I got sick, and the worst thing was I wasn't like too sick to do stuff, but the sickness involved sneezing constantly, like to the point that I couldn't record anything. Like it was super gross and really annoying. I think it was the most annoying sickness I've ever had in my life, that sneezing. Like I cannot express how irritating it is to just sneeze several times a minute and not be able to stop.
All right, so let's talk about some of the features on this new website, right? So we have the search function is way better. Like it's using a Postgres text-based search. It should be lightning fast.
I just searched for Jack Thompson and it says search results, page 101 for Jack Thompson, and didn't have anything.
I have 4 results.
Oh, I spelled his name wrong.
There you go. Oh, but that is a bug. It should say no results found or something.
Yep,
right?
It says page 101, so there's nothing. So there we go. I can put it.
All right, so
I can put something in GitHub if you don't.
Yeah.
There we go. Takal, a geek fable, a myriad of topics, a Stratego.
Yeah, there is a player built into the website that uses the standard HTML audio tag. So that's, we don't have any weird player tracking you or anything. We don't even have Google Analytics. I have no idea who's visiting this website. We've removed all. I guess I removed it actually quite a while ago from the old website, but there is no tracking or any nonsense of any kind on this website.
Yep. The player just works. It just works on mobile. It just works in weird browsers. Like it's kind of great.
The HTML audio thing. We updated the various links on the website so they go to the right places. that's, there isn't a bunch of garbage left over. I don't know.
Yep.
It's a website with links to podcast episodes.
Yeah, like the podcast is the content.
Yeah, the main feature is that it produces an RSS feed. Then the RSS feed is like has every possible RSS thing that you can have for a podcast. It's like I looked at like the RSS feeds of like the top podcasts, like NPR podcasts, shit like that. And we're doing everything that they're not doing.
Yeah.
Rim actually bothers to enter it. Like we even have like chapter data in there. It's
which
like,
I'm gonna start doing. Like it was a nice confluence that I made a pipeline to crank out thumbnails for videos because of Adobe Express, which is actually like it works pretty well. Like it kind of just works, even if you're bad at graphic design.
Images on the episodes now.
So I'm gonna leverage these capabilities with increasing fervor as time goes on as we ramp this up.
Yeah, I mean, why does the website actually exist? It exists mostly to produce an RSS feed, right? And so that if people search, they can find us, right?
Yeah.
They can find our pod and just so that, we don't want to be beholden to various platforms. It's like we can have our own place. That's why it exists. And it serves that function. I imagine most listeners don't need the website, don't have a use for it, right? It's they're just using their podcast app or YouTube or whatever it is that they're using.
Yep.
And that's perfectly fine. I don't care if you use the website or not, right? I have it because we have to have one, not because the search function, I hope, is actually, the most useful thing. So if there's like a old Geek Nights you're looking for, or, you want to know if we ever talked about a particular thing, you can go and use that search function, and it should be faster and hopefully more helpful than like doing a Google site search or something like that.
Yep. And we do have one feature that we have to bring back later around related content, and we'll talk about that if and when we have a better implementation.
The one that, there's actually a few things that are already on the list to do, right? One thing is that, to make it so that when we post episodes, they automatically get shared, all around, right? We talked about the posse model, publish on your own site, syndicate elsewhere. We have to do a lot more syndicate elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
So I've already done the thing to where if you like post a link to one of our episodes, say on Discord or somewhere like that, you'll get, or our forum, you'll get sort of the automatic fancy embedded thing, right? With like the logo and all that stuff appearing. But I have to make it so that when Rim uploads an episode, it automatically posts on Discord without us having to do that by hand.
Yeah.
Automatically make a post on Patreon without us having to do it by hand.
And I'm a big fan. We were talking about privately among some friends, why not just syndicate on every fucking possible thing anywhere? Like, why not have a pop 3 that just will email you a podcast, like point Outlook at Geek Nights, and you'll get your podcast.
We could gather email addresses and set up a thing to where people subscribe to Geek Nights by email, and it emails everybody when there's a new, episode.
Yep.
But yeah.
I was poking around on the search, and I found a gem already. I found something we uploaded on July 30th, 2012. It was me appearing on episode 57 of Friday Night Party Line, and in the forum, there is video of the live stream of the podcast and all the people on it, and the video is also embedded in the website because of how good Scott is at his job. And it looks like we talk about the possible discovery of the Higgs boson. So there's been a lot of movement since that episode. And I think I see Timo was on this episode. I see his face there.
There it is. There, it's right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Found a little gem. So, yeah, I feel like we could adjourn now because I really want to eat and then start watching some hockey. And then I will start to go through the upload process and we'll see how this goes.
If you're going to do the upload process, contact me and then share your screen.
Yeah, we will do that. We will step through that together. Maybe
watch the computer while it's doing whatever it does.
Maybe we'll do it during a period break in the hockey game.
During the first or second intermission. I have to cook a food.
I also have to eat, so TBD. Worst case, if we don't get to it, we'll do it tomorrow or something. It's not like I have anything to do this weekend. It's going to rain.
Yeah. Also, hey, in addition to us not doing episodes for reasons, we also don't have a lot of episode ideas. So
yeah,
come to our forum, which you'll find a link to on our website.
Yep.
frontrowcrew.com. You can click on community and then click on forum.
There is also, I note,
or you can even click on email or Discord.
But we have not had a link to our fucking Discord for so long, and our Discord's actually got a lot of cool people in it. I've been starting to try to pay more attention to it. So occasionally, you'll figure out if I'm like pooping at work, because suddenly I will reply to like 15 threads in the Geek Nights Discord all at once and then disappear again for 2 weeks.
Yeah. But yeah, send us, show ideas.
Yeah. Suggest anything except we will not talk about Twitter and we will not talk about Jack Thompson unless they have somehow topped themselves.